So tonight was episode 3 of season 5 of Jane the Virgin, and I think I'm actually gonna take my glasses off because last video when I was editing it, I can't see, but last time I was editing and I realized that like the glare on my glasses even bothered me, so I guess we'll just try it without. I can't see. You get like the bedtime me because this particular kind of video I do after my kids go to bed because that's the only time that I can like focus, and for sure it'll be like somewhat quiet. So last episode, I think I forgot to mention this, but last episode, River drops some kind of bomb on Zoe, but we don't know what it is. She hands her a piece of paper, Zoe reads it and is like, right. What it is, we find out in this episode, is River is going to be making twice as much as Rogelio, and River wants Zoe to break the news to Ro. Here's my thing, is that like a thing? Do you tell people? Like, I feel like that's tacky. I'm not in showbiz, but I just feel like, does he need to know how much she's making? Like, is that something that you have to like, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not confirm. No, whatever. I don't know. Okay, it's like, but it's that something that you have to like share with your co-star? That doesn't make sense to me. That seems inappropriate. But anyway, Zoe, for like the first time, pulls the cancer card and she guilts Jane into delivering the news to Rogelio because she's like afraid that he's gonna lose it. So he comes in and Jane tells him that River's going to be making twice as much as he does, and he's furious. By the way, Zoe still has cancer, and I would like an update. Like, I remember last season, she decided to quit the cold caps to, like, prevent hair loss. She still has all her hair. I don't know, like, I'm not, like, familiar with how that goes, so it's like, I would like an update, because she's one of the main characters, and I really like her, and I would like to know, like, is she going through chemo? Like, is she getting better, worse? Like, I'm sure they're gonna eventually, I hope they're eventually gonna get to that, but it's like, I would like to know, what's going on with Zoe. So, after last week's episode, they showed a clip for, like, the next week's episode, which would have been this one, right? Episode 3. And all that it was Jason saying, like, hey, I want to take you out on a date, right? With some roses. But I couldn't remember. Here's the thing. I don't have cable. And I have, like basic channels and basic, like, antenna cable right now. And I've never really watched a whole lot of TV. Just over the years I've watched less and less, like, not because I'm like a hippie, but because I just don't have time to, and I don't run the television in my home anyway. But what I'm usually doing if I'm watching some kind of show or movie, it's like Netflix or Hulu. So like my TV is not even on a whole heck of a lot, and if it is, it's a kids movie that, like, it's a DVD that the kids are putting in. It's an interesting time right now. It's really bizarre because I don't really see commercials. I don't see commercials, I don't see trailers. So what it was is I saw the commercial for the like upcoming episode one time, and then when I had to redo my episode 2 recap, and I was like, for a second there, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know that they showed who he was talking to, and I couldn't remember like his surroundings. So I'm like, oh my gosh, was he asking out Petra? Like, that would have been so funny because he's been eyeballing her, and I'm like, oh, that would be something, right? And like, because you assume that it's Jane, but no, it's Petra, and that would just be silly. But yeah, that'd be also a waste of an episode. So I was wrong because he's clearly standing in her doorway. So like, my bad. It's a bad prediction on my part, but Jason does come to ask out Jane. He comes to Alva's house to ask her out, and she declines. And then she tells Raph, and Raph is, of course, angry. And he spends, like, the whole episode pretty much just choking it back and, like, just reminding her, like, get that divorce, sis. Let's get this done. Wrap it up. So then Jane and Raph are at the Marbella, and I don't know why. I guess maybe she's going to work. But I'm like, anyway, they're like talking and hugging and whatnot, and then all of a sudden Mateo screams. So then here comes Jason, and I again forgot to mention that Mateo doesn't know that Michael's back. He knows nothing of it. They have kept it from him. And why? Okay, well, for starters, I have to say that this like YouTube thing, like, I'm new to recaps, okay? So I'm doing a bad job, I feel like. I'm new to recaps. Don't even know if it's worth doing. I hope that somebody watches it, or not. Maybe I don't know. But anyway, like, YouTube is just like a hobby, and that's like more on that in a separate video, I guess. But it's like scrapbooking didn't work out right because I couldn't keep my kids, and I legitimately enjoy scrapbooking, but I couldn't keep my kids' hands off all the stickers and stuff, and I was constantly having to like stash my scissors in glue places, and I was like literally carrying around this basket of stuff, and I was like, just forget it. So I put a pin in the scrapbooking, and then somehow I got really into the grocery videos and decided like, I kind of like, maybe I should try that, right? And then I realized that I had fun like messing around making different kinds of videos, and I really like editing the videos. Like that's just fun to me. So forgive me if these are not what you expect, and you know you've probably like already stopped watching this at minute 2, so you won't even hear this disclaimer, but my bad. Okay, so I forgot to say that Mateo doesn't know that Michael's back from the dead. Might have been a major plot point, but in this episode he sees Michael and Jason and screams. So then this leads to him having all kinds of questions like, what, like, you know, like, do all dead people come back? Like, am I gonna die? Like, are you guys gonna separate? Like, I don't want my mommy and daddy to be apart now. Like, are you still married? What's going on? And so it sucks. But then I thought, why did you bring him to the Marbella? Jason lives at the Marbella. So why did you bring Mateo? I mean, of course, you have to, you know, make that slip up for this whole thing to work, right? For the show to go on. But just, you know, logically, why did you bring the kid the one place that Jason's definitely going to be? So Zoe explains gender parity to Ro, which I will be completely honest, I'm aware of the issue. I wasn't aware of that term. But she explains gender parity to Ro, and that, like, it's kind of like an A-lister thing, right? She tries to, like, make it like a twist on it for Ro to get on board, and says like, you know, Bradley Cooper's on board with this movement and blah blah blah, and like it's a really awesome progressive thing that you should just like totally move on about. And he of course takes that information and like runs in the complete wrong direction like Rogelio tends to do, and he tries to talk Riverfield into stepping down and like what do you call it, like being the hero for him. And she explains that like while she loves him and things are going really well, she's really proud to be in her position and be like the first woman to make Double a male co-star and blah blah blah, so she won't be doing that. So another thing that they go back and forth on in this episode is Mateo is having a lot of trouble getting along with Anna and Ellie. And like, I have to say that with the exception of Petra's labor and delivery episode, I have never accepted or gotten over Petra's pregnancy. It was very upsetting to me, and I personally, as cute as those little girls are, I personally like to just stay in my like Jane, Raphael, Mateo bubble. I know I'm alone on this, but I kind of, I don't know that I am terribly interested in seeing like a whole lot of scenes with like Raph and the girls. I really like Petra's character, right? I like Petra and I like watching her interact with everybody, but it's like, I don't know, I just want it to be Jane, Raph, and Mateo. That's all, the way it was supposed to be. And you know what's funny? Okay, so like way back when, I also try to tweet occasionally, and I remember way back when I said something like, ugh, am I the only one that's tired of seeing these little girls pop up or something like that? Like, am I the only one that gets annoyed when these little girls pop up? And somebody actually, because I don't have very many Twitter followers, about as many YouTube subscribers, so somebody actually responded and said yes. And I was like, okay. I think I actually deleted that tweet because I was like, maybe that's mean. I love kids. They're adorable little girls. However, I could do without that part of the storyline is all, okay? It was just a little bit, you know, hard for me to accept. I know that this is just like a goofy telenovela, you know, it's just a TV show, I get it, but I can relate to this aspect of it because I have 3 kids, and it's okay. Sometimes I think that kids who look a certain, and this is not a race thing, I think that sometimes when kids look a certain way or their parents carry themselves a certain way or they're just from like a certain background, it's like they're assumed to be better than, or you just assume that they are the good kids, okay? And there's also something to be said about children who are quiet about their mischief. I don't have any of those, but there are kids that are just sneaky or quieter or mellower, and so you just assume like it's not that kid. Sometimes when there's conflict, people have trouble seeing things for what they are and being like, they have trouble not being biased. And the fact of the matter is, all kids are jerks. All kids, yes yours, are capable of being jerks, and I accept that and I try to correct it. And I feel like I'm not an expert, but I feel like that's what you're supposed to do. And it's just hard because it's like there's kids that are like, and then there's kids like Mateo, they're like, I'm gonna kill you, right? And so there's kids that are just like out and about, with their feelings and their mischief and their, flaws. And then there's kids that are just like in the corner, like secretly, and they never get scolded. And I hate that. That being said, I don't like when Petra, I don't care for when Petra scolds Mateo. That's come up a few times throughout the series. And I like that Jane always speaks up and like she'll correct that. But yeah, I don't care for that. I don't think that's cool. But it's funny because Jane and Petra, they go back and forth about like a solution. So Jane like finds this article about like a way that they can talk through the kids' problems, and she messages it to Petra, and Petra gets like very defensive. And it's funny because Jane's like doing the research and looking things up, but Petra's like shouting at her assistant to like one up Jane, like find something better, think like Jane, do better, and like find me an article, send Jane. And so it was just funny, and they keep like discrediting each other's like finds and all that. It was funny, but they end up sending each other the same article at the same time, so they agree sort of on a solution to try. And by the way, who is Petra's assistant now? Because it was it Krishna? Krishna is in jail. So have they showed her new assistant? She was just like shouting out the door at somebody. They didn't show. But anyway, they all get together in a group, and I wonder how much they're gonna like get into this, like the kids' relationship and like their kind of struggle, because again, I know it's supposed to be like adult telenovela, but I'm just curious because Jane had thought that Mateo's issue was like there's just so much craziness going on, so clearly he's like, acting out because there's just so much chaos around him. And he's like, no, that's not it. I feel left out. So then while they're having their like group chat, so bright, while they're having their group chat, Mateo like immediately feels left out again, and he's like, they're doing it again, like they're, and on top of it, they're twins. So the girls, Anna and Ellie, they're like talking to each other while Mateo's trying to like share his feelings, and yeah, I just felt so bad. And so they start like slapping each other and like yelling at each other and stuff. But I just feel bad, and it's interesting because that's like such a hard situation, and they're the three kids are at an age where they're really aware. So I just wonder like how much they're gonna get into that and like over this like season, because it's like they share a dad, but they don't all live together. And Anna and Ellie have each other, but Mateo Mateo, this is so funny. Mateo doesn't have any siblings. And so I just wonder, like, where they're going to go with that. So then Jane and Petra step aside to, like, talk about it. And because Jane notices that Petra's being kind of, like, bitchy. And just as I expected, Petra also is feeling left out. So that is why she's kind of allowing her kids to be crappy, because they feel left out, she feels left out, so Mateo can feel left out too. Boom, there, ha. Zoe kind of inherits the title of Rogelio Whisperer, and so now everyone is blowing up her phone, just like asking her to intervene for different reasons, and she's getting really stressed out, it seems like, and she's kind of frazzled, and like, she's trying to talk to Jane, and she's like, ugh, and it's like she just shouldn't be in that position because she's sick. Which, by the way, I need a Zoe update. I need a health update. Thank you. Any and all medical records would be appreciated. But Rogelio later has a fit on set and ends up injuring River for the third time, and he like stomps her face. It's like, I swear, I looked down and looked up and was like, what? And luckily they did a little like replay, and I was like, okay, I guess. So the River ends up coming back to the set with a partially paralyzed face, like you do. And the show goes on, and that like really earns Rogelio's respect. She films everything from like her non-paralyzed side, so hella thoughtful. The makeup is funny to see, like her lips all droopy, and my daughter's like, "Mommy, why is her lip like that? What happened to her mouth?" I was like, "Her face got stomped. What else?" But then later on, at home, Ro and Zoe have a conversation, and Rogelio explains that like, he kind of explains his feelings, and it's not so much just like money. It's not the idea that like he wants to be the winner. It's just he feels like this is his show. It's been his dream to be famous in America as well. He made the show popular as a telenovela, and he feels like it's his culture, it's his show. He should be compensated fairly or equally as well. And then he said he looked into it, and the pay equality thing is an issue for minorities as well. So he's like, it's a bigger thing. And then I feel like they kind of shoehorned some like political type stuff in there, and it's not that it was false, but it just felt like not a natural thing. And Rogelio was saying that like, well, I take that back, because he is bringing this show from like Mexico to America. He's bringing this telenovela over, And he says, you know, he doesn't know if he should be like bothering because he's like in a country or, you know, trying to become famous and loved in a country that is kind of like pushing Mexicans out or trying to keep them out. And so it's like, okay, I just feel like I don't know if that would like come up in a day-to-day conversation, especially if you're famous. I don't know. But okay. So they got that in there. So in the beginning of the episode, Raph kisses Jane on the forehead, and it kind of like becomes a thing where she's like, ugh, like the flames are going out, we need a date night kind of thing. And it's like, okay. So they decide that they're in need of a date night, but when it comes down to date night, they take a rain check because Jane suggests that he should go spend time with Petra and the girl because they're feeling left out. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. But speaking of dates, Jason has not let up. So Jason still wants a date with Jane, and he's actually said that he will take a date in exchange for the divorce papers, which is like not cool. But he like hasn't stopped texting Jane, to Raphael's dismay. And Jane counteroffers with coffee, but he says coffee's not a date. Let's go fishing. So they go fishing, and was anybody else afraid for her to get on that boat? I was like, don't go in the water. It's like, oh, guys, gonna like throw her overboard and she's gonna be lost at sea. They're like in a little lake, but still, like the first thing you think with this crazy, with all the crazy twists, I'm like, no, get on the boat, no. But they get on the boat and she's fine. But he makes up these rules, and one rule is that she's not allowed to mention Michael. The other rule is she's not allowed to make mean or like unhappy faces, and then the third rule is the date isn't over until she catches a fish. And I was like, oh, cute. Okay. So obviously, like, time goes by and she hasn't caught anything, and Jason's caught like buckets full, right? And so he offers to teach her how. She accepts, and it gets, of course, like kind of like they do like a ghost thing, right? It gets a little bit weird, and he like sits behind her and like shows her how to fish. And I thought, oh my gosh, please, please, because you know the music starts, and I'm like, please, please don't give in, don't mess this up, Jane. And she doesn't mess it up. She ends up falling into the water because she stands up when she's trying to catch a fish. She falls into the water, catches the fish, date's over, no weirdness, and she's like, where are my divorce papers? Boom. But Raph runs into Michael at the Jason at the Marbella, and they have this like interaction that's very reminiscent of season 1. So I really enjoyed that. That was funny. It was also sad because Raph is so upset, and Michael's like, oh yeah, but that's my wife, and it's like. So Jane heads back over to snippy-ass Petra's house to try to, again, work on things with the kids. And she shows up with, like, scrapbooking supplies. What a coincidence. And just, like, pictures of the kids when they were, like, cute and playing together and all of this. And she, you know, Jane's, like, waiting to hear about, like, how the kids' night went with Raphael. And Petra's like, and so she's like, can we talk? And it turns out that Petra was upset that she felt left out of Jane's life. It had nothing to do with Raphael and the kids. She felt bad because this like major thing happened to Jane and she didn't share it with her. And I was like, Petra, she always surprises me, right? And I really, really like the sweet moments between Jane and Petra. I really do, because Petra, you know, at first is such a hateable character, but so many layers. So Jane lets her know that, like, because of the way she grew up as an only child, she really sees Petra as a sister. And then actually that part made me tear up, and then Petra was like, yeah, me too. And so then Jane starts to fill her in about everything that's happened with Jason and how she's been feeling, and Petra asks her, like, did something happen? Like, did you feel anything during fishing? And I was so relieved to hear her say this. But she was like, yeah, I was afraid that I was going to feel something, but I didn't. And I was like, Petra tells Jane, like, you're entitled to be happy and you have every right to, like, protect yourself and to protect your family, and, like, you do not have to help Jason get his memories back. Like, that's not your job. You and Raph have a good thing. Protect that. And, like, that's your right to do that. And I was like, thank you, Petra. So Petra ultimately tells Jane, like, she thinks Jason should leave. Like, you should tell Jason he's got to go. And then Jane asks about JR, and Petra gets emotional and says that she still has feelings for JR and misses her. And so Jane suggests that Petra butt dial, accidentally call JR and just see, like, what she does, like, see if she responds, which is a pretty smart idea. So, like, Petra right away does that. Oh my gosh, okay. So much has happened this episode. This is probably the worst show to recap because it's all over the place. There's so much drama. There's so many characters. There's so much. And then my videos end up being like 20 minutes long. Okay, so Jane goes to Jason and tells him, like, we got to be done. You have to leave. And he actually agrees and says that, like, fishing, he admits that if fishing with her was exhausting and, like, he didn't feel anything either. So, like, we'll wrap it up. Jane goes and tells Rafael and Mateo that Jason's supposed to bring by the divorce papers the next day, and he will be going back to Montana. So she will be getting a divorce, and Jason will be gone, and life will be normal and just back to whatever, right? Also, Jason lost his accent a little bit in that scene. I don't know what that was, if that was just like his warm, friendly accent, but it didn't quite sound the same as like, ma'am. Also, Mateo gets kicked out of mommy and daddy's bed, so Jane and Raphael have some adult time, and afterwards, she gets a text message from Petra saying that JR messaged her back, so I can't wait to hear what that was about. And also, speaking of siblings, again, the like topic that keeps coming up this episode, Jane says that I got so emotional. Okay, wait, I gotta compose myself. So Jane says because of everything that's been going on with Mateo, it made her think of how she grew up as an only child, and she would like to have more children. And Raphael is like so happy. He's just like beaming, and he's like, I love this. Yes, let's do this. And I'm like, so I wasn't even thinking that. I wasn't even thinking about more siblings because, as you know, like Mateo, Ellie, and Anna are his only sperm samples. So, since he was sick. So I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to see what kind of like twists and turns come up with that, because like, is there a sperm sample out there, or like, do they adopt? Oh my god, I can't wait. I wasn't even thinking of that as an option, so I'm like so excited to see what happens with that later in the season. So behind the scenes, Zoe contacts River and explains Rogelio's side of things and his feelings. And so River comes to Rogelio and says that she believes that he should have equal pay as well. And she decides she's gonna like join the movement for equality, and she ends up on the cover of a Latino magazine. Well played. Okay, I was so not prepared for this ending, but here we go. So Jason shows up at Jane's house, which now that I say that, I want to say it was Alba's house, and like, didn't Jane and them move? So what's going on? But Jason shows up and with the divorce papers, and he's also there with a fishing pole as a gift to Jane. And they kind of have like a little heart to heart, and they hug, and you know, Jane gets a little emotional, but she pretty much wishes him the best and says, you're a good person, you deserve happiness. And she also returns the fishing pole because she's like, I'm never gonna use this. And then as Jason is walking off the porch, the fishing pole like scrapes the like ceiling, I don't know, whatever is over the porch, like roof, awning, I don't know, I'm not an architect. It scrapes it, and like whatever that is, cement, drywall, again, not a construction worker, stuff starts falling on Jason, and it triggers a slew of memories, of Michael memories, okay? Not NCIS memories. And it's all of the times that snow fell on Jane and Michael. Oh my god, I was like, no, and I got like so emotional. Yeah. And then, of course, his heart glows. And just like, can I just say, like, what's up with the house? Like, what's up that, like, stuff's always chipping and falling and crumbling? Like, be careful, guys, okay? Get that checked out. But the episode ends with Jason standing on the porch outside Jane's door with his heart glowing. I would never be so bold as to attempt to make predictions about this show in particular, but my predictions for Jason or Michael would be, I think he's either going to go to Montana but come back and decide like, no, I have to see this through, I have to tell Jane that like I had these memories and I have to like see what's there, or he's gonna find a reason to stay. He's gonna tell Jane that he's leaving, or she's gonna assume he's left but he's really sticking around and is being kind of like, he's either gonna be like a pest or just like trying to find his way back to Jane. I think it's going to be a little bit like season 1 and 2 again, but also it's been too easy. She's been making the right decisions way too quickly without, you know, consulting her family and everybody she knows, and just beating dead horses all over Raphael's poor heart. It's just been too easy and too clean and not messy enough, and I don't think that's going to last because it's Jane the Virgin, bitches.